I'm here with Mike Russ, Mr. Mint Coin. Mike, welcome to your podcast.
Yes, thank you.
So, Mike, could you remind us what Mr. Mint Coin is, where you're located, and what you all do?
We're located here in Kerrville, 1217 Broadway, and we're here. Basically, I'm a coin dealer. I started off as a coin dealer, collectible coins and all that stuff, and it morphed into more than that: gold and silver, buying jewelry, estate deals, bullion, all that stuff. And we buy and sell. And so I started this business about I would say 2.5 years ago, but I really had it in my mind for a good 4 or 5 years. But I started it technically about 2.5 years ago.
So the types of, I've obviously had the opportunity to visit your store, and you have collectibles, I would say, as well. Mm-hmm. I'm a big sports collectible guy, so I always gravitate to something like that. But how did you get into coin collecting? You mentioned you've been doing it for a long time.
Yes, probably when I was a kid. My parents got me into it. My grandparents they were collectors and all that stuff. And funny story is that what got me into it was I was doing chores or whatever, and there was the Ike dollar. I was born in 1977. So I got this Ike dollar, and I called it big money as a kid. I was a little kid, and I really liked that. So I would do whatever. I'd probably work 3 hours of chores to get one Ike dollar because I thought it was big money. You know what I mean? So
it was big money.
It was big money. Little to know that today the Ike dollar is still worth $1 unless it's silver. But that's one of the most common things that come into my store is an Ike dollar, Susan B. Anthony dollar, stuff like that. So those are those things that I was started to collect as a kid. And then it gone into my parents. Oh, he likes collecting coins. So we'll give him some coins or stamps, political buttons. All those little things were given to me as a kid. And I enjoyed it and liked it, and nutcrackers. It's just all kinds of crazy things. And still today, I say nutcracker because it's fresh in my mind that I don't technically collect nutcrackers anymore, but my mom knew I loved nutcrackers as a kid. So I still get a nutcracker every year for Christmas. And she stopped it one year because she didn't think I liked it. And I said, Mom, don't stop doing that because you enjoy it. Yeah.
I'm almost reluctant to say this, but if you ever want to get rid of them, let me know. My wife will be over.
I have a lot of nutcrackers.
At the Symphony High Tea last year, they decided to put the table nutcrackers on sale. And I just went up to the president and I said, I'll take them all.
Yeah.
Wherever it is.
I have quite a collection of them, at least 47, 48 years or whatever it was.
So, very cool.
So, yeah.
My wife will be down.
Yeah. My last one was a golden nutcracker because I started the gold and silver shop. So that was my last one last Christmas. So it was kind of cool. It was special. That was a cool nutcracker.
So gold and silver right now, we're recording this in May 2026. The economy, global economy, local economy, national economy, all volatile right now in the middle of this Iranian thing. But that's not what started or will end the volatility. Could you talk about your work in gold and silver and how people can either use that to obviously translate to cash, but maybe even as a hedge?
It's always a hedge. It really started taking off to really when I started the business, as far as this whole bull run that we went in, it started 2.5 years ago.
Right.
When I started the MR Mint Coins, we had silver at 22. I'm going to just say $22. And I think gold was like 18, beginning of 23 or whatever. It started taking off. And we rode that wave the whole way till now, which this January it hit all-time highs of 55 from 1800 from 2.5 years ago, 3 years, whatever, to 50, I think 5,600 and some change was the high on gold per ounce. And then silver hit 120. And that was the high of this was not only the high of everyone that was going through this that's in this business to the extreme low. Because in January, I remember the day, there was a lot of people that make it out of this deal, but that volatility and there was speculation, there was all that stuff. There was a crazy time. In January, I remember it was like a Thursday when it was just going up to 120. I think it closed at 120 for the afternoon. And we had people lined out the door, not only buying, but selling at the same time. So I was literally buying silver and my other guys were working on sales. And where I was moving hundreds of ounces of silver, I'm moving it over here and handing it over to him and he's selling it over there. So it was like, wow, this is great. But I knew that there's that bubble, it's going to pop. And I called my mom on Wednesday and I said, hey, I know you have some ETFs or whatever, some silver. Call your guy at Edward Jones, sell off your silver and you just buy it back in. As I said, sell it at 115. I think like 115 or 120 is going to be the number. It's going to just be bad. And I had that in the back of my head too, because even though that I'm buying physical, I'm not buying paper contracts. I have to hedge too by the way, but when I'm buying and I'm so busy with people lined out the door selling, calling me. I had a guy wanting to sell me like $700,000 in silver that day. And luckily I couldn't get to him because that very next day, when the markets opened, we saw the fall and it dropped by 35% or something like that on silver. So like from 120, I think my last sell of the day was a guy called me, said, "Hey, I want to buy some silver." And it's at 120. I said, "It's at 120." And he said, "Can you wait for me to get your, because I'm already closing at 5." I said, "I'll wait for you." And I remember the guy coming in and he buys like 10 grand worth of silver, and he's come to me several times. And then that next day it dropped that 35%. It's never got back up there, obviously, because now it dropped down to 67, but now it's back to about 87. I think today, I think 87 is the market price right now. And that's from January, and we're in May.
Did you see that type of volatility with gold as well?
Oh yeah. Gold was very volatile at the beginning of that too. I always remembered I wanted to hold gold, but I was buying a lot of it. And I wish I did. Obviously, you always say you wish you did, but I'm operating on 2 or 3% on gold when I'm buying. That type of volatility, when I bought a bunch of gold, I would just call it in, because here in Kerrville, we don't have a huge volume of people coming and buying, right? So I have to rely on refiners. Whenever I buy a bunch of gold or silver, I have a big lot, I'll just have to chalk it up, make my 2.5%, send it to the refiner, and they pay me, from there. But at that time too, here's another thing that was kind of crazy, is that whenever the refiners stopped buying for a while, and they were either stopped buying or you couldn't get processed for 6 weeks to get paid. So you can only imagine, a lot of shops just stopped buying. I just said, I'm going to roll with it. I got some funds to hammer on this and take the risk, because I'm a gambler at heart anyways. I played poker professionally for 6 years before I ran this business. So I take risk anyways. And I took that risk, but I just kept shipping. I just kept boxing up the stuff and shipping it off and not cared. I didn't care how much. I was just hoping they wouldn't go out of business or something like that during this time. But it was pretty crazy. I've been on this whole rush ever since I started the business that I never could imagine, because I was just going to do it as a sideline business. And I had to sell the business off to my son, which he worked for me. So when I had the AV business, that's another story. But because I had MR home automation and I have MR Mint, and I'm just going to do it as just a sideline business. And because I always stayed at the office and I did just all the proposals, and I sent my guys out to do the audio video. And I said, it's easy to do that, but I couldn't even do that when I first started it. So for the last 2 years, I haven't touched a audio cable or done a service call, and since then. And he's now officially owned it since April 20th. He signed the papers and he's good to go with that. But there's so much to talk about when it comes to gold and silver. And I don't even remember the first question you had. I keep rambling on, but that's the volatility. I mean, the volatility, I think that's what your base point of question is about, the volatility and how you survive that. And it's just a big hustle, basically. I don't know what else I could understand. Volatility is like it's almost seemed like, because I was in Bitcoin too. So
Okay.
you know how volatile Bitcoin is.
Sure.
It's like that. That's how it is right now. So.
Could you explain to our audience what a hedge is?
Basically, if I'm going to, typically what I do, how I hedge my stuff, I do it differently than like ETFs and stuff like that, like going on the paper market and then you buy in your stuff and all that stuff. But I have like my own stockpile of silver and gold. So whenever I have to buy something there, I'll just sell off at the time of purchasing it. I just sell off that actual, I basically hedge myself on buying that, and I sell off my portion of stock inventory to hold off of that, and it's protect myself on the hedge. That's kind of how I do my physical. I don't do anything magical other than that. I mean,
because I was introduced to hedging in the corporate world by a chief financial officer who explained it to me. And so I've always been intrigued how an individual can hedge. And so hence the question to you, how do you hedge, and how can somebody perhaps hedge with one of the metals that you buy and sell?
It's pretty much, I just protect myself from because I know what's coming in.
Right.
So whenever silver's at 87 today, and I bought it at 87 on the high, And then so when I buy on 87, obviously we have our percentages like 90% or whatever. If I'm paying silver at 10 to 5%, and then I know it's going to take it could take a 5% hit for the next day. Whatever I buy that day from that, I just turn it over and sell off what I have in inventory. So I have basically a big inventory of gold and silver. So whatever I can hedge off for that, I just do my physical versus what I buy and purchase in the store itself. I don't do any paper ETFs or whatever. I just hedge basically from buying, selling, and then making my percentages each day. So this volume.
Mike, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask you if our listeners wanted to contact you or come by the store, what would be the place or places for them to go? And do you have a social media site?
I have very little social media right now, which I need to work on. We do have Facebook and stuff like that, but you can get a hold of me on mrmintcoins.com, or you can also contact me at 830-955-7205. We're located here in Kerrville.
Address?
Address is 1217 Broadway, corner C Street and Broadway.
All right. Mike, I wanted to thank you and look forward to continuing this conversation.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.